Hey guys, it's Matt. I buried my fifth cat in the cat graveyard in the stones off the side of my house just a few days ago. Not the ones in my house. Zara and Fifi Addie are still here. We call her the tuxie cat because that's what the SPCA wrote on her box or on her paperwork because she's a tux cat. We hadn't named her. I didn't want to get too attached to a feral cat that I was going to take care of. But she was outside, I don't know if it was the end of March or middle March she showed up. And my neighbor called me saying, two houses down, do you know anything about a black and white cat that we've been seeing around? It's not a neighbor I talk to very much. She was, it looked like she was dreaming, like a dog dreams with the feet shaking, but completely out of it, unconscious. The feet were convulsing, shaking, and I put her in the carrier. I got her out of my neighbor's garage, and I took her back to my garage, where it all started. And just to give a quick update, 1 minute or less before we go on to our general life-death discussion, which was prompted by what happened to Tuxie this week. I'll tell you why that came to be. We believe she ate a mouse or a vole or something that had eaten rat poison. Those poison cubes, or you poison the mouse, it runs outside and dies, and then the outside feral cat eats the poison mouse, whatever somebody had put in their house as a mouse bait, and then the cat is also poisoned. It breathed for almost 2 days, but it was completely out. It wasn't suffering, completely out mentally. The feet twitched for a long time, slow breath. If there was any suffering, I would have dealt with it earlier, but I let it go. And then the cat, just one morning I woke up and it took about 2 days. The breathing had stopped. There was never any crying out or anything like that, or no observed suffering. I would have done it differently. So since March, my neighbor and I both have put out kibble. Zara is a waster of food. Fifi Addie eats every morsel like she had been starving at some point in her life. Zara is a waster, as many cats are. Cry for food, cry for food, cry for food, and then just eat a little bit, and then not go, So a lot of times it's scraped wet food off into some paper plates, put it out back. Tuxie would eat that, no doubt about it. She knew. She was still terrified of me because I was the one that initially trapped her. But when she was hungry, you'd see a little head would pop around the corner. So I'd know to put more food out. I always put water out for animals anyway, fresh water, especially when it's dry. Birds go into it, and things at night drink from it. Always encourage anybody, if in a dry place, always put with your hose water out for animals if there's no streams or lakes nearby like there is here. So since I buried her in the stones next to Puss, Boots, Cooper, which is Pam's cat, Gouda's brother, but Cooper's been here like a year and a half, so like my cat, and then initially Belle. Another reason to bury her too was, again, still filled with poison. I didn't want that poison to get into another animal, but I thought, was it worth it? For her, she was very young when we got her, or when she showed up here. Who knows how she showed up here? And I put the amount of time, I estimated a cat lives, most cats live 12 to 14 years. Some cats go over 20. Some cats have issues early on, like 7 or 8 years. So 12 to 14 is about average. The amount of time she was fed well with a full belly and completely free. And you put that over the time of a human lifetime, it's not quite 2 years, but say it's 2 years. The ratio of Tuxie's life where she was completely free, well-fed, I'm not counting the first 6 months of her life, where she was starving and on the verge of death. Pure freedom, putting that ratio, the amount of time she was truly free, without a care in the world, to, well, there are predators out there, but let's not get into that. Putting that ratio to the human lifetime over, say, an average of 82 years would be just under 2 years. Is it worth it? Would you take it? It's like that scene from Braveheart comes to mind. Would you trade this moment for all the moments later to have one shot at pure freedom? So this cat had pure freedom, and it's just the equivalent of 2 years in a human lifetime, and that's pushed up. It's more like 1.7, but let's just keep it to 2. So I've been mulling this over constantly since she died. Okay, backing up a bit, I think time is relative to the creature. I am convinced of this. that, okay, well, Matt, a cat only lives, like you said, 12 to 14 years, and she was only out there in a purely free state for a matter of months. It was March, April, May, June, July. I mean, at the most, it was 5 months. I think she was here a little bit longer than we knew, and she was eating some of the kibble and stuff I would throw out for other animals. I didn't know there was a feral here, so I think she was here a little bit longer. So someone may say, Matt, she just was purely free for just over 5 months. That's just not enough time. Something to consider. First off, I think time is relative to the creature. I am personally convinced of this. I have no proof. Someone would say, what is it, the mayfly or tsetse fly? What are these little tiny things? They are born, they die, they live for one day, right? Oh, that creature's a low creature. That creature's screwed compared to the human being. In my opinion, that lifetime to that fly or whatever, that thing that lives 1 or 2 days, is just as long as a human lifetime from its perspective. And regarding time, that's all that matters, in my opinion. It gets into the truth drops of Einstein's relativity. It's like a song that carries that carrier wave or that retrocausality language where you can take truth. Say there was, I don't want to get into whether the not Nilk presentation of Einstein. Matt, don't you know? That's not the point here. I'm well aware of all the possibilities regarding Einstein. Whatever the presentation of the story is from not Nilk, we, just like in analyzing a song or a piece of art, we can take another truth from it. And I've been thinking about this for a long time. I've never talked about it. Relativity. He's talking about relativity. It's a truth drop to me you can assign to a lot of different things in a lot of different areas and places regarding how animals that live a short amount of time view or see their life. No different than the way we believe our lives or experience a certain thing over 80 years, whatever it may be. The fly, the tsetse fly, why don't we keep saying it's the mayfly? The tsetse fly is the damn thing that causes the African sleeping sickness, but I guarantee it probably don't live too long either. The tsetse, or the cat, 12 to 14 years, I think to every time to everything is exactly the same as roughly the human lifetime. That fly doesn't say, oh, look at that human. He's so lucky. She's so lucky. They got 80 more years. Oh, boy, I only have a few hours. They don't. In my opinion, these creatures, they don't experience it like that. It's just as long as a human lifetime, the little fly, or whatever it is, the eagle, the chameleon, etc. To me, it's like a truth drop, Einstein's theory of relativity. And even if there's more truth that comes out of it, you can apply to different areas. Well, if you go, as you approach the speed of light, time slows down. And they're just telling you right there that time is relative. Time is perspective. It's different creature to creature. If that little fly was intelligent, that fly potentially could look at a human being and think it's like Methuselah on steroids. Say, boy, those humans might seem like to that fly like the human lives for thousands and thousands of years, but that lifetime to the fly, I'm completely convinced, is no different than the way you experience a lifetime or any other animal. Okay, so when talking about what happened with Tuxie, that's thing number one. Well, where's thing two? That's thing number one to consider, that it wasn't experiencing pure freedom. If you would you trade all the moments from now until the end of sleep, as Braveheart sleeping in your beds, would you trade all the moments from now until then to have one shot at freedom? You have to think it's more like 2 years what that cat experienced of pure freedom, not the 5 months that it seems to you and me. So Tuxie dies, and the first thing I start thinking is, oh, she only had this small amount of time. And of course, very quickly, I start thinking differently. Well, if that's the equivalent of 2 human years and it was pure freedom, Matt, would you trade the Braveheart example, all the moments from this moment till sleeping in our bed, sick and old someday, would you trade all those moments for what amount of time for pure freedom? Would you trade it for the 2 years? Just at first, it seemed like, oh, she only had 5 months. And now just a day later, I'm pondering, would I trade it for pure freedom? And then I start thinking, well, this is not a ridiculous scenario. Would you trade what? Somebody might say, well, the entire reality, not Nilk reality, works tirelessly, so we never experience even a single day of what could be considered pure freedom. So as soon as it's able, the not Nilk hits us with school And these expectations start coming, even first, second, third grade. It's not calculus exams, but, we have to do a leaf project. We have to do a bird project under the guise of learning. Just commitments. It's when do you have to turn it in, man? I have to turn it in by Friday. Commit things. These are burdens that the Not Milk is starting to put on people. Societal expectations. And then the parents, of course, bow down and they're brainwashed with the download. Before even school, you need to learn to play the piano. I don't want to play the piano. You need to learn to play the piano. We're going to take you to soccer practice. I don't want to play soccer. Societal expectations. Cello practice. I don't want to play the cello. All this, that's okay. That is pretty darn free compared to like the doctoral student at Yale, all the crap they've got to do to get their stupid little degree they can put on the wall. But it starts early. Even like, we got to go to cello practice. It's eroding the concept of pure freedom that the Not Milk doesn't want anyone to experience. So what is the time in someone's life where they don't have societal expectations or commitments? A baby, 1, 2, 3 years old? Can you really appreciate your state of pure freedom as a baby when you're pooping in your pants? And as soon as you stop pooping in your pants, the Not Milk starts working on you. And as usual, Not Milk reality gives itself away in a lot of different scenarios, things people don't think about. We've talked about this a few times in the past, but it's appropriate to talk about here. If society really cared about people, there wasn't this dark thing in the shadows that somehow managed the collective conscious, somebody that would get to say age 70, or pick whatever age is appropriate, society would work to remove all their worries, anxiety, and stress. It would just start with things like, okay, you're age 70 and you agree to live meagerly. Income must be $30,000 or less and a net worth of under a certain amount. But if you want to live in a certain way, then there will be no more taxes for anybody over age 70. There will be no more school taxes. There will be no more property taxes. There will be no more local municipal taxes. And if society valued the things that it says it values, freedom and, truth, justice, and the American way and everything they taught us about in school, these initiatives would have started in the 50s. So now they'd be expanding out by 2023. So if you're a resident in certain cities, Philadelphia, Chicago, there's no water bill that comes. They really need, what's the water bill? Like $15 for a lot of people. It's still very low. The water bill would just stop. Society would be structured so they don't need to get that from the 75-year-old. Even the electric bill would stop. You can structure society to do this. I mean, if anybody that's new here, they can print up $1 trillion a second. There's never a money issue. The whole society, Not Milk, and government is structured 100% about control first, control over a populace, and keeping a population from ever experiencing even a moment of pure freedom. And I know there's somebody screaming out to me. I can hear you right now. Well, Matt, if somebody of a certain net worth that still has the house and the 3 cars and their income is of a certain, they should continue to pay the school tax. And yeah, I hear you. Obviously. I mean, that goes without saying. But if society cared, even somebody with a nice house on the hill, it should be their choice when they reach, say, a certain age, if they want to live their life towards the closest state of pure freedom available. Some with the house on the hill and the 3 cars could say, okay, I'm going to get rid of my net worth. Or they should be allowed to put it in trust for their son and their daughter that will someday inherit it. So they have no access to their net worth. Then if they drop it down to a certain degree, all the taxes stop, the water bill stops, whatever else stops. Society should be structured this way. And then the money then should go to the heirs that placed in trust to the son or the daughter or the cousins or the nephew, whatever. But then the government, no, they don't like that either. Oh, they want to get their piece. And anybody, when they step back and see the way society is structured, even countries supposed to be the freest in the world, it's very dark. All of our, just in general, the stresses and worries in life could be 80-90% eliminated, even for the 30-year-old, the 40-year-old, the 50-year-old, if society really was structured where people cared. They do care at the individual level, but the way Not Milk does business and its evil genius is, the good ideas at the individual level never make it up the chain to benefit society as a whole. Now with the effects of what we call the download, we don't have another word for it. Everybody's tuned to this radio station, this frequency, this not milk download. Not only in the past, it had to work hard, so the great ideas are benefiting anybody that, say, turned age 70, that wants to live more free and wants to give away their assets. They'll be not hassled anymore by taxing authorities. See, they worked hard to keep all those ideas away. Now, since everybody's on this download, I don't know, the spell's been turned up, the technology, the frequency's been turned up. Now the collective works to make things worse on people, to make it even more fucked up. They collectively works to make it even more fucked up. The not milk is evil genius in this regard. If you equate common sense to the gentle flow of a river and the direction that it flows towards the sea. Now, the not milk over the decades has always worked hard to dam up that river. Common sense can't rule. Let's dam up the river with our demonic beavers, or we'll put this in here to stop the flow, or we'll back it up. And it worked hard. It didn't have as much to work with in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s as it does now. Now this flow of common sense, which some of us can still see, the river must run in a certain direction towards the sea, and then everything it will work hard to dam it up, but everything will still eventually get into the current of common sense. Oh, no more. This shit, that we still see the river of common sense the way it should flow, but the not milk now has stuff defying gravity, or it flows up the river. This shit goes against the tide. Well, how does that work? The not milk's got these boats in the river going up against the flow. What? How does it work? That boat got no engine. That boat got no sail. Everything goes against the flow. We can still see the flow. It should work like this. A few normal people like us, we stand at the banks of the river and we're like, well, wait, the flow is going this direction. It always has been. How is it getting its shit to defy gravity and go up the wrong way? Like, well, I'm going to test it. Get out your penknife. Let's carve out a little sailboat out of this piece of wood here. We'll do a makeshift sail out of a homeless person's underwear. And we see the flow. It's going from left to right towards the ocean. And we put the damn boat in the river and it zooms up the wrong way. And we're like, how the hell does the not milk accomplish this? So getting back to what we were talking about, if any society really cared, at least some of the burdens and stresses and hassles that society hits people with would go away for somebody, saying, turning age 70 that decides to live meagerly. But because the not milk has reversed the flow of the river, who would be surprised if there were more taxes coming to somebody turning age 70, or at least more red tape, or you're over age 70, so now you have to fill this out. And in coordination with your doctor, you need to do this report. And more hassles, more burdens. And we would say, the few of us on the bank of the river would say, this is completely effed up. But our family and friends and people like Tony would be like, it makes perfect sense that somebody age 70 should have more things to do. And if you don't fill out that report that goes to the state and federal government in association with your doctor, you should be fined. That old bastard should be fined $200. We're the only ones left, folks, that see the way the river should be flowing. So a few more things about time before going back to the conversation. Would you give up how much of the life that supposedly is in front of you for a very small amount, relatively small amount of what could be considered pure freedom? We'll get back to that conversation. As I said, I believe time is relative to the creature. Completely different experience for each creature. I think it can mold like this. As usual, the reality is out to fool everyone. You see a clock, you see that, Matt, that second hand is ticking the same for every creature that stands before the clock. I think that is the way it wants you to be fooled. I don't buy it. I think the little fly, whatever you want to, whatever, a greenhead. There used to be greenheads in Ocean City, New Jersey. We'd go out onto the bay, the back bays, with the large reeds and the smell of swamp gas. These little things would bite the shit out of your thigh. You'd be like, I was pound for pound, the most vicious creature in the world is the greenhead biting fly. It was like, ouch. And then, yeah, you would smack him and kill him. You take a chunk out of my leg. Sorry, you're going to get killed. Sorry, that's just self-defense. So maybe that greenhead fly lives a summer season or 2 months. I don't know. That 2 months, in my opinion, no different than somebody, your grandmother that lived 85 years or whatever. No different from that thing's perspective. It's my opinion. I don't believe time exists at all outside of this reality construct. So say you knew someone. I don't know how to talk about it. Before you were born, you knew something, an aspect of yourself. Said, you going in that funhouse called Earth? You're going to do it? I'm going to do it. Oh my gosh, you're the only one I ever met. You're going to go to Earth? Yeah, I'm going to do it. Well, they step through the door. They just step right back. That's my inner knowing take. I don't think time exists. So they lived. Oh, I lived 90 years on Earth. They went. It's like a revolving door from your spiritual friend, or I don't know how to talk about it, before you incarnated here. Right through the double door. You've seen movies where they go through the double, they just come right out the other side. That was 90 years. So it was not, how long was I gone? You weren't gone at all. There's that Star Trek The Next Generation episode with Picard called The Inner Light. It's one of the greatest episodes of any Star Trek of all time. Even though it's slow, there are boring parts, he's just playing a flute. They're like, why is this so good? It's so good because it exactly hits home, in my opinion, with our inner knowing about this earthly train stop or about time itself. So early on in the episode, the Enterprise spaceship encounters this probe. The probe beams something into Picard's mind. He passes out on the bridge. All right, then he wakes up. He's having a dream, but he believes it's completely real. Wakes up on this foreign planet. And he says, get me back to my ship. And he's like, you live here. You have a wife. You have kids. This is your house. This is your farm or whatever. It's like a dying planet. They get no more rain or whatever. And it's, after a few years, he kind of gives up the notion that he was a starship captain. And that must have been a fantasy of somehow. This is my life. Then years and years go by. He raises a daughter. And this is all going on, this 80 years or whatever he experiences on this planet, watching people come and go, live and die. In the show, it's 15 minutes he was knocked out by this probe. But in that 15 minutes, he lived a life that was as real as the life you're living now. I mean, this, whether it's intended a truth drop or not intended, or it was channeled by the storyteller behind the episode, or it came from creeps. When you watch this episode, when a real person, and I've talked to others that have watched this episode, The Inner Light, it just screams as it concludes that Picard wakes up in another reality, had lived the life. It was completely real. It screams that is exactly what's going on in our lives now. But they can't say it was like instantaneous from Picard's perspective. How long was I knocked out on the bridge here? Well, you were out for 15 minutes. Well, that's the way they have to do in the episode. From my perspective, it's instantaneous. By that regard, we are already dead. Do you understand? I mean to freak anybody out. Overall, this is the greatest news of all time. If you were standing next to somebody you knew, it's hard to do. How do you talk about it? And you're going to go into this fun house. Little 22 from the movie Soul's waving you goodbye. I ain't going down there. I refuse to go. Little 22 from Soul, which is a pretty darn good movie in a lot of respects. Some say it's deceptive intentionally in this regard, in that regard. Well, we're big enough, we're adult enough to see through the deception. Overall, with the crap Disney's put out, overall, Soul is a pretty good movie with some pretty good points, and you can take a lot away from it. There could be a deception here and there. Oh, that it shows the recycling light trap. Oh, yeah, let's get David Icke in here as a consultant. We're adult enough. We've been doing this long enough to take the good away from something and to ignore the rest. Okay, Soul is a good movie. But what I was saying was, again, you're standing with some aspect of a friend or of yourself. You go in through the revolving door. I think before I said double doors, I kind of meant the revolving doors. And you come right back out. You lived 80 some years on Earth. You just came from the other person's perspective. You came right back out. So there's time in that place. There's no time in, say, this place. From that perspective, we are already dead. Picard lived out his life over 15 minutes, but the idea that they were expressing in that Star Trek episode is they beamed an entire lifetime into his mind from the probe. The probe was carrying the information of an ancient civilization that had died out thousands and thousands of years ago. And the idea behind it, the probe was representing the died out or defunct civilization because that civilization wanted to be remembered. And that's the way they posit it in the Star Trek episode. So any poor devil that comes in his little spaceship that comes across this probe, goes, bzz, it zaps you in the head. You think you lived a whole life on a foreign planet. That'll really fuck you up. It's like an LSD trip times 1 billion on steroids. So, but that's the way they have to posit in the Star Trek. If you go into the Earth reality system, you come right back out from the perspective of your friend waiting for you to come right back out through the revolving door. From that person's perspective, since it was instantaneous from anything outside of this snow globe, we are already dead. Oh, Matt, that's terrifying. No, it's not. It's the best news of all time. In the past, I've talked about, this wise old coot, this guy named Russ, my dad's friend who's passed. No formal education, didn't read philosophy, wasn't religious, just like like a hillbilly type, but had this raw knowledge and inner knowing. I've told you recently he would make the best out of any situation, not to make anybody feel better. He believed it. I think I told recently that story about my dad's house in the 80s or whatever. He's going to his closing and he found termites. And Russ is like, that's the best news of all time because of this and that. And he wasn't just trying to make my dad feel better. He would spin it and it turned out correct. He's like, well, it's great we found the termites before the closing for this reason. My dad was ready to pull his hair out. He's ready to cry. Oh, it always woe is me. And Russ is like, that's the best news of all time. But in this regard, somebody said, I don't know what it was, something about health or you should do this for your cholesterol or Russ's take on life. He'd like, well, my friend died, 10 years ago. Russ might say that. He had an older friend. He's like, I'll be joining him. He would say, I'll be joining him in 5 minutes. This life, just like that. All of a sudden, 10 years, boom, we're done. Just had a sense that it is like an illusion. It's like, why should I worry about I'm not saying to be reckless with your health and we all should do certain things. But he's like, I'm not going to take a bite of this cookie because it's like, my friend Jake died 10 years ago. I'll be joining him in 5 minutes. And then you'll be joining me 5 minutes later. That's just the way he put it. The way I put it a few minutes back was it's instantaneous. If you had a friend that died 20 years ago, from the perspective of that friend or anything out of here, you both died exactly at the same time. There is, again, it only exists here, what we know of as time. So Russ had no formal philosophy. He didn't read no Nietzsche. He didn't read no Aristotle, whatever. He just knew. And the way he would put it, so at least people could understand a bit, he's like, I'll be joining my dead friend 20 years ago, or his brother actually died in a diving accident like 50 years before Russ died, when he was in his early 20s training to be an Olympic diver. He died on the platform, and Russ was like, I'll be joining him in 5 minutes. And he's right. It's instantaneous for the most part, in my opinion. While we're on it, we might as well talk about the last thing associated with time, that at least from this snow globe's perspective, or this reality system's perspective, time is all stacked on top of each other. There's no difference. I guess if you're outside of here looking in, the Civil War is happening right next to you or right on top of you. There is no time difference from outside of here. It's just the perspective of the needle of consciousness where it's placed on the record. It's all laid down together. And I wrote about this. I almost believe like I channeled it somehow. When I wrote the fun fiction book, Quantum of Conscience, people still find a book on Amazon called Quantum of Conscience and think it's like a conspiracy book. And there's a whole description that tells you what the book's about college kids and dream experiments that evolves into time travel. It's pure fun fiction. I make from Amazon $8 to $15 a month from that book. I'm not trying to promote it. Get it up to $16 a month. No, I'm just telling you, people think it's, there's the Matt's conspiracy book. No, it's a fun fiction book. But when I wrote it, I started writing it like 9 years ago, something like that. It just kind of like zoned out at certain points. It just kind of came to me for the purposes of the book that time is like a vinyl record. It's all there. It's all laid down already. Not that we don't want to get into no fate or determinism or no free will. I believe in free will, so I don't want to imply no free will, but it's like all there on the record. And the only thing that's different is where you drop the needle of consciousness. And from what Tony talks about, the higher selves perspective has multiple aspects of little Matt in different times, in different places, maybe even different reality systems, not called Earth, but all at the same time from the perspective of something outside of here, of your higher self. And one aspect of Matt could be somebody in the Civil War, but there's no difference in time. It's all on the same record. It's just that this needle's playing song number one, but there's multiple needles playing different songs, and that, this from us, this Civil War was so long ago from our perspective, but maybe from higher selves perspective, it's playing out exactly together at the same time. Time is all perception in here. It needs to exist, or you wouldn't have things like motion. You wouldn't have any sort of experience without time. I mean, to me, this is crystal clear. I don't have any proof other than inner knowing, but this is what I believe, very strongly believe. One, time is relative to the creature, the insect. Nobody has a shorter life than anyone else or any other creature. It's all the same. Perspective is all that matters. Two, from the perspective of being outside here, we go in, we come right out instantaneously through the revolving door. The time experience, or the lifetime of 85 years, is only in here. It's no different than the inner light, the Star Trek Picard Next Generation episode. And finally, it's all together. There is no difference in time from something outside of here. It's all laid down on the vinyl record. The only thing that matters is if you drop it in the middle, that's the Civil War. Pick the needle up and drop it a little towards the end, that's where Matt is now. But it's all there together. It's all where you drop the needle of conscious observation. To me, it's so crystal clear that the main point of this entire experience is to be blind to everything. Be blind and ignorant to the true nature of reality. Be blind and ignorant to the true nature of who you are, where you came from, what you were before birth, what after death. This relates back. I don't want to turn this into a religious conversation about knowing God. But this entire experience screams out that we're supposed to be so blind and dumb and clueless here. That is part of the experience, the reason for the experience. But every religious leader runs around and tries to tell you how you should know God here. This is not the place to get to know God very well. Look around. You could be best friends with God before you came here. I assure you, there's probably a lot of places, whatever you call God or the ultimate creator or spirit, all sorts of spiritual issues. There's a lot of places that you've probably been where you know what you would call God pretty well. This isn't the place to know God. But the religious leadership here is, this is how you know God, and here's what you need to know God. Well, wait a second. This isn't the place to know God. Obviously, look around, man. We come in here, Tommy, the deaf, dumb, and blind kid. This is the place to forget all of that. And I'm not saying that implies debauchery and you should go join the Sopranos. Not at all. That part of the experience, the deaf, dumb, and blind kid, Tommy, be like, God wants you to do this and to know God. This ain't the place to know God. Okay. It's so obvious to me, but sorry. We all have our viewpoints. What would a scientist or an astrophysicist at the Ivy League or a cosmologist, whatever that is, say to me about what I just said about time? I have no idea how they would react to that. Of course, since they're just completely in tune with not Nilk, I don't think they'd be in love with what I just said. I don't think Mitch Pikachu would want to give me a gold. Mitch Pikachu, Michio. I don't think he'd want to give me a gold medal or a blue ribbon for what I just said, but would be like, well, that's interesting. It was like, call the loony bin. Probably, since they're all on the download and the not Nilk, it would be call the loony bin, of course. They probably would start reciting some bullshit from Einstein related to relativity. And Matt, don't you know as you approach the speed of light, time slows down? Oh, I know. Of course I know that. You know how fast my train gets in New York City? I approach the speed of light every day. Damn, coffee's not even cold by the time I get into Penn Station. Anyway, as usual, the things we talk about or what we ponder or think may be, I think we get a lot closer than the scientists, but that's awfully arrogant, don't you think? No, because they're on the frequency of not Nilk. And the entire society is a trick and a ruse, a cunning attempt to trick us. The entire society, from top to bottom, is focused to be one big lie. The closer you are to its mainstream views, the farther you are from real truth. That's friggin' obvious at this point. Rules of certain nature in this reality system are immutable, whatever that means. If you're closer to what Neil of the Grass-Fed believes, or Brian Cox, or Mitch Pikachu, or who's the other one I put in that category? Stephen, the CBE, Stephen Hawking. Sorry, I'm Sir Stephen Hawking, I apologize. If you're closer to those viewpoints, then that means that's the closer you are to having your head up your ass. So getting back to what we were trying to talk about 2 hours ago, the entire reality, the not milk reality, of course, is structured so what they call a human being doesn't experience even a single day of what would be considered pure freedom. There's no doubt about it. It will take some sort of stress and anxiety and worry and try to put it on somebody right up to the moment of death, whatever it may be, unpaid bills, disputes with inheritance, the kids are fighting, whatever it may be. So, again, I've been thinking about this after the burying of Tuxie. Did Tuxie experience pure freedom? And what would I be willing to do to experience that? What would you be willing to do? It gets back to Braveheart. Would you be willing to trade all the moments between now and then, sleeping in your beds many decades from now, for one chance at freedom? This is a truth. The truth drops flow out of these big movies, like whether the director or the writer intended it or not. That is a truth drop in many respects. A few months ago, we talked about the truth drop of kiss the royal seal, kiss the royal emblem, and all your pain will go away. This is like similar to me that come on under the dragon's wing. You come on, make that deal with the chief commander like Bob Dylan, and we'll make it all better. Then it gets worse. And to this day, the Scottish people are still upset at Mel Gibson and his horrible abomination of a Scottish Highlands accent from the 15th century. They're still upset at him even today. He says, I want to be free. It's like when you say, how many licks in a Tootsie Roll? When they drop that 33 and how many licks in a Tootsie Roll? Oh, let me see. Wise old owl. 1, 2, 3. That's what Mel Gibson did as playing a Scottish. I want to be free. That is the best. They're still upset at him up by where they play, Aberdeen, the golf up there and shit. They're pissed. If Mel Gibson ever set foot up there, I don't know what they'd do to him. He says, you may call me daughter if you want to stay out of the troubles. Didn't they just prove it? No, Wallace. Sorry, Matt, yours. Someone say, Matt, yours is no better. Well, I wasn't in the best picture. I wasn't picked for the role. Well, was I? Sorry, what were we talking about? Life and death, trivial shit like that. Well, it seems to really understand what we need to do if we don't have a clue or when we just start out, for example, you look to Not Nilk and its governments and its systems and its minions and you see, what does it want from me? Oh, it wants this? Oh, then I just need to do the opposite. It's trying to get me to go my entire life without being able to drop my stress, worry, anxiety, etc. So what I need to do is I need to drop my stress, worry, anxiety, fear of death. Oh, that's a real big one. That's a real feather in its sick cap. Fear of death. So we have to do the opposite. We have to learn to do the opposite. There is no reason to fear death. We don't give the Not Nilk and that son of a beach what it wants. I was watching the movie with Matthew McConaughey, what is it called? The Free State of Jones, the other day. And there's a scene pretty early on where, because of a Civil War battle, a young kid dies. I don't know if it's Matthew McConaughey's nephew or I don't remember. But the kid, he's dying, and he shouldn't even be on the battlefield. He's probably only like 14 or 15. He's like, I'm afraid. He does a great acting job as he kind of expires. I'm afraid, and it just hit me. Of course, people like us think about things, of course, different than the people around us. And the kid says, I'm afraid. And I thought, if this one page at the end of the book, as I'm reading it, I'm going to ask you at the end to throw out everything we just discussed. Not here, but in general in the book. Once you understand, then you just have that one page at the end, half-page reality and what you need to do, the work. One of the main things that will be on that final page is to exercise, if that's the right word, to get rid of the fear of death. It is absolutely on the first page of the Not Nilk playbook. Again, I've said this sort of thing so many times that I'm sure it just goes in one ear and out the other, or becomes rote, whatever that means. Couldn't be more important. You and I would agree. Does the Not Nilk, let's just go, this is so important to existence. Let's go back to the absolute basics. Does the Not Nilk want people afraid of death? Of course it does. Even the normal person would say, not that the Not Nilk and the evil thing that stands behind the screen, or they would say in general society is pretty much set up to fear death. And even the average person would say, well, maybe that shouldn't be. Of course, the screen reality wants everybody to fear death. Therefore, you have to not give it what it wants. And it's the best news of all time. It gives itself away. because it's so dying. Interesting use of words. Because it's so in love with getting everybody to fear death. The kid in the Free State of Jones, I'm afraid. It wants this so desperately in people. It gives it away that there is no fear of death. It's part of its trick. It's part of its ruse. Matt, don't say it again. I won't. It's part of its deception. Therefore, there is no fear of death. It gives, when you can just look at it and say, what does it want? Oh, we know then the truth is the opposite. And the opposite of what Not Milk wants is always like the greatest news of all time. I'm not joking. A few things about big religion come to mind. If those that are very religious for whatever their religion may be, have such a great relationship they've developed with their God, why do they fear death? They do. Well, why would they go and do 5 years of chemotherapy? I won't give any specifics, but a close relative of mine had a close relative. Okay, that's distant from my perspective. But that relative, extremely evangelical Christian. I mean, you almost couldn't have a conversation over a dinner without, her wanting to mention something about the Lord. Or that's fine, okay? But this person went and did, I think, on and off 7 years of chemotherapy, and through several years was really horrible and torturous. Why? Did the person have little kids at home? No. Kids are in their late 30s and early 40s, okay? There's nobody at home, no spouse. Why do the chemotherapy? We see this over and over. I mean, not that you want to go jump off a bridge to be with your God, but why would you go through the chemotherapy and do the it's making Jacob Marley change to this world. It's making pact with this world. It's saying, if you have commitments, whatever, you got to get back to work for your 3 little kids, fine. Go do the 2 years of chemotherapy. You have commitments to little ones, whatever. People have unfinished business, whatever. But for that situation, to me, it's like making pact, saying, I don't want to leave this world. How truly of the faith was that person? It doesn't make any sense to me. They're highly religious, but then will go through extraordinary means to do whatever they can so they don't have to leave this world. If there is such thing as creating a Jacob Marley chain, to me, that's it. And per what we just talked about, the fear of death, that is or could be a massive Jacob Marley chain in this reality system. If it can get you, who knows what it gets out of it? If it can get you going into death with the fear of it, who knows what the metaphysical chain could be because of that? You bringing in Saturn, Moon, Matrix or shit? No, I'm not bringing in Saturn, Moon, Matrix and that sort of horse shit. But who knows why does it work? When it works hard, and we notice Not Milk working hard or the screen, well, it's doing that for a reason. And to me, it's not always as simple as loosh energy. It's doing it for a reason. So we see it works awfully hard to get people to be terrified of death. Therefore, don't give it what it wants and go into death as we should. It's just a train stop. It's just Picard, the inner light. It's just an experience. It's natural. Are we going to be able to get rid of all fear, Matt? I don't think so. I never been there myself, I don't think. Man, that tree maybe did crush me around 2012, but I don't remember if it did. I just woke up in what's this reality? Don't make no sense. But anyway, we'll talk about that tree experience some other time. I've mentioned it before. No, I don't. We are limited in this body. I don't think we'll be able to we can't fake it to make it in this regard, but you can work on it. You can get it, if you get a rope down to a certain level where you frayed it away or whatever, then you can break it. Okay, the rope will always be there, the draw of this world, the vices of being in the body. We can get it to where it's manageable, where we can overcome it. We don't have to be perfect. Well, Matt, you talk about not going into the moment of death with any fear. You of all people, you better fear death, boy. You didn't give your allegiance to my God. Somebody may say that's a Muslim or this or that or a Christian. Matt, you didn't give your allegiance to my God. He gonna whip your ass when you get it, when you die. You better fear death, boy. Okay, that's right. I forgot. Even though per the moment I woke up to how this reality system works, every day since I woke up, I try to improve myself, try to make myself a little bit better, try to help people understand this reality to avoid its tricks and traps and its ruse. Don't say it, Matt. I'm not going to say what ruse is. I try to help people to a degree, the best that I can. There's a spider in the house. I put it outside or try to take care of feral cats. No, I could do more. I hear you. I don't have a whole string of homeless shelters up and down the mid-Atlantic that I run. I could do more, but slow improvement, whatever, with the limited means that I have available to me. But that's right, I forgot. I am a jealous God. You got to strike me down. Matt, all you had to do was give your acceptance and allegiance. Why does it want my acceptance and allegiance? Why would it need that? I don't need acceptance and allegiance from the ants in my backyard. A greater being doesn't need worship. Okay, Matt, let's not start this again. Sorry. Going back to Picard after the episode The Inner Light, what's very interesting about that episode is, even if you don't like Star Trek, guys, you should really check it out. And it is slow at times, but as a real being, it will really move you as it all comes together at the end. The NPCs listening to the words coming out of my mouth, or the minions that have to kind of keep notes, or minutes, they have to present minutes on this program, you're not going to understand it. It's not going to sink in to you. All right, who a real being listening to me, and almost everybody here is, it will move you. Picard was changed at the end of that episode, profoundly changed, even carried forth into other seasons, where he continued to play that flute that he learned. He'd never had a family or loved in a certain way, and he was profoundly changed. We will be profoundly changed after this hardcore Marcellus Wallace pipe-hitting experience. And remember, in The Inner Light, when he's beamed to that other planet and he experiences 60 years or whatever with family and wife, and that is this life. That is what we are going through now. That doesn't mean at the moment of death we're going to wake up on the floor in a starship. Hopefully not. But it could be as simple as just, okay, moment of death, it all just will make sense. When you dream, you believe you are the dream character. You're going out there, you're being, half the time in a dream, I'm running from a dog or something's trying to bite me. My cousin said to me when we lived together in San Francisco to share the rent, where I just said recently, we lived on Harrison Street, south of Market. I would tell him about these dreams. He said, if I were you, I'd never go to sleep. He said flat out, he said, if I were you, I'd never go to sleep. That weird shit. You're always running from some creature or something. I don't have those dreams anymore. Interesting. I was working for the big insurance company, and I don't have those horrible. The dreams are usually nonsensical, frustrating, but not like running from some three-headed Cerberus or something like I used to have. Literally bite me in the ass. The thing's chasing me. But when we wake up. I believed I was that dream character in the dream. Well, I wake up and it all made sense. Well, obviously. I can't say obviously because I haven't been through death as far as I know, but when we die, it'll just make sense. I mean, what is there to fear? What did that FDR say? The only thing to fear was fear itself. So he was trying to do FDR. He was trying to actually make an egregore. He's trying to personify fear. The only thing we have to fear. Every time you do an old president, it always ends up sounding like JFK. I know, that's all I can do. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. It's always a hybrid between FDR and JFK. Only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I can see your ruse. You're trying to personify fear and make it into a living egregore. You should be ashamed of yourself, Mr. President. And anybody new to this channel is like, wait a second. This guy, this Mr. Presenter lunatic, believes that FDR, in trying to rally a nation to prepare for the upcoming and inevitable World War II and trying to present a motivational speech, was somehow creating or feeding an egregore or personification of fear, the way the yellow power of fear was presented and took out worlds in the movie The Green Lantern. You think he was trying to get the hundreds of millions of people listening to actually believe fear is a thing, to make it more powerful? Yeah, that's exactly what I believe. What do you think it was? Motivational speech. Well, let me give you the ABCs of a motivational speech. When you go to give a motivational speech and raise people up, you don't personify one of the worst things in an entire reality system, son. How many millions of little kids listened to the speech with their parents and then went to bed that evening and said, Mommy, before you blow out the candle, I got Monsters Under the Bed, Monsters, Inc., right? And is fear itself going to be in the monster closet, Mommy? Do I got to worry about that boogeyman? Well, he was just putting it a certain way, that FDR. Don't you worry. Well, what do you mean fear itself? It's like Monsters, Inc. Is that thing going to be in the closet tonight? Do I have a new boogeyman under the bed, Mommy? That's what FDR did to millions of little kids. Can't say what I'd like to say, or they'd keep me from posting to the channel for a week. As usual, a note to our top politicians in history: thou art a villain. Anyway, to wrap this section up, it does relate to the Not Nilk working overtime and the screen reality trying to get everybody fearing death as they move into death. It's also like you can take or read between the lines of what FDR said, the truth drop. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Well, yes, okay, trying to personify what fear is, but how can that thing be personified? It can only be personified via the imagination or the belief of creator beings, of real. It can't come into existence on its own. It's the tens or hundreds of millions of people listening that would be the only ones that could personify the fear. So again, as usual, the person being tricked is in the position of power. The person being the tricked, or the person who has been tricked, has the 100% power to fear itself at the moment of death, to completely say bye-bye to it. All the power lies in terms of the one getting tricked, not those laying down the trick. Well, what does that mean in English, sir? Well, I thought it was pretty clear, but okay. It means you hold all the cards and it holds none. It means it needs you, but you don't need its broke ass. It's quite simple. And the lights are going off in the aluminum Ducati Control Center again. Chernobyl Center or 3 Mile Island Center? Both. The flashing lights are going on. Call Larry Silverfish. He's doing it again. He's pretending that they have power. These low, pathetic, proletariat, great unwashed sons of bitches, they just keep making shit up to make their lowly lives feel better. And then Larry Silverfish says, we control the skyscrapers. We control the economy and decide who gets an Oscar. We're the greatest powers in this world. We control. Oh, well, you do. I'll give you that. You a big fish in a small pond. You control all this horse shit that we don't care about. Now get lost, Larry Silverfish. That's a real feather in your cap. You control all the stuff that we don't give a shit about. That's just wonderful. Oh, that's great. That's great. What else do you control that I don't give two squirts of piss about? And if any, for some reason I was meaning to say this before. This person has sent me a few comments about, Matt, don't use the word kid. And I don't know why I just can't let it go. I'm going to address it fine. I'm going to continue. I don't like child. I'm going to say the word kid. Well, Matt, that means that relates to pan and it's derogatory. Guess what? We've been over this. See, as I said a million times, we have to use the spellcraft of English. But per affirmation, and me just saying, I'm going to use the word kid to refer to a boy or a girl under age 15 or whatever it may be, I remove whatever the Not Nilk wants or power it's trying to extract from me using the word. I've removed its power. You've heard me say those sorts of things. So if I can see the trick, and potentially the way you pointed it out, it is a trick. If I nullify it and it means what I say it means, then they don't get anything out of it. So I will continue to use the word. Again, the tricked, once you see through the trick, has the power. You can run around in fear about 666. Oh, this is apartment 666. We can't move in here. Or if it's the greatest apartment, it just happens to be labeled where nobody wants to move in because it's labeled apartment 666, you have the power to say, well, this number means nothing to me. In fact, I'm declaring it the greatest number in the world. It has nothing to do with Satan or the devil, just a number like anything else. There, you've declared it. You've nullified its power. Move in. Move your shit in. It's that simple. People give it the power that it requires by being fearful of it. Oh, Matt, we can't stay on the 13th floor of this hotel. All that sort of horseshit gives them, where real people believe in it, gives them the power to make this gematria, whatever the creepy symbols, even more powerful. If people believe it or are scared of it, you have the power to nullify it. We all do, of course. Or by definition, they wouldn't be playing a trick. So again, back to the Braveheart concept of, would you trade this moment to your last for one chance at pure freedom? Back to Tuxie, she had more like 5 months of pure freedom. Was it worth it from her perspective? I think it is, because that's more than most people will experience, whatever she experienced. Can we have a moment in our lives where what will be the closest thing to pure freedom that we will be able to experience? And how can we work towards that? What can be achieved? going back to that's why this not nilk screen reality will never make a proposition that says, oh, if you reach age 70, oh, these burdens will go away or these taxes will go away. It'll never happen. It's the fundamental nature of our adversary here to pile on as much as possible right up to the moment of death. It needs that. It requires that. Of course, it starts by just looking down at yourself. What Jacob Marley chains have been put on us? What can we remove? What attachments can we cut? I mean, if you're living in a certain city or whatever, they're going to come with a tax bill or whatever. And it's, unless you want to be one of these sovereign citizen types and know how to go roundabout in the courts and declare yourself, or do you have ownership over me and all? I don't play that, but I appreciate that people want to play that. Let them play that. But unless you're going to do all that, it's pretty hard to remove it all. I don't think we have to be perfect, but how can we continue even over 5 years moving in that direction? I mean, do we ever want to be the kid from Into the Wild? We all love this movie to a degree. The real people really like Into the Wild because it might not be the definition or the scenario of pure freedom that we would choose for ourselves. It bothers me when he burns his money. You might need that money to buy hot dogs, dude. Don't burn your money and walk off into the woods. But many of us, I can't speak for all of you, but we're fascinated by it because to a degree it represents walking out towards what could be considered pure freedom. Whatever that kid probably knew, he wouldn't live very long, or who knows what he believed. But there'd never be another summons. There would never be another jury duty. There would never be another tax bill. He's just done with it. And to hell with the consequences. This not nilk is a master of evil incrementalism. Something as simple as turning age 65 or whatever, I don't know if it's 65 now or 67, enrollment in Medicare. For those around the world, Medicare is provided by the U.S. government for the medical needs of older individuals. But the point is there's an open enrollment period. Why would there be an open enrollment period? Why wouldn't people that have just worked and paid into it automatically be put into Medicare? Who would choose not to be? Even old, really rich people are in Medicare. They just take it, of course. I don't even think it costs anything unless you're in Part D or what. I don't know. I mean, but why? The point is, why would there be an open enrollment? It's so evil. Well, how many people, I don't know, or they're a little bit off, or dementia, or forget, or don't do the open enrollment, and they don't have medical coverage? So in 2023, the AI is here. They wouldn't be sophisticated enough to know somebody is paid in throughout 10 or 15 or more years of their life and to automatically enroll them so they have a medical coverage. If something happens, there's an open enrollment so those who miss could end up with nothing. You know how sick and evil our adversary is? But everybody around us, our friends, family, my friend Tony, this is just normal how everything works. These types of themes repeat over and over. Obamacare, when it went in, and I was affected by this myself, certain plans that didn't have certain features. Well, instead of adding smoking cessation and some of the features, Obamacare required a bunch of features, so it made healthcare even more expensive. It was called the Affordable Care Act. Everything here is backward, inverted, and refracted. It was called the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act, which just became known as the on-the-street version, Obamacare, made everything more expensive. And though you couldn't just add the few things that were required, everybody had to be dropped. Millions of people, including me 2 years in a row, had to be dropped off the damn plan, and then you have to re-enroll. And if you forget or don't re-enroll, then you out in the street. It couldn't just say, well, we're to conform with Obamacare, you had the silver, whatever, preferred silver. We're just going to put in the things that Obamacare requires, and you don't have to do anything. No, you got a letter that dropped you, which stressed you out. God forbid if anybody was going through cancer treatment or whatever, it dropped you, just literally trying to suck that loose, saying you have nothing as of this date. You have to re-enroll. And then who knows how many thousands or tens of thousands of people forgot, or it didn't go right, or they pushed the wrong button and we're left with nothing. I mean, our adversary is such a son of a bitch. Nobody stops to notice it. My friend Tony, it makes perfect sense. Drop 6 million people and then have them scramble around like rats to re-enroll. Well, Tony, why not just add the smoking cessation and the few things Obamacare required? Just add them to the existing plan so they don't have to do anything. Well, that wouldn't provide as much loosh for Larry Silverfish. But to people like your best friends and everything, it's just normal. It all makes sense, Matt. Matt, if you question this anymore, I'm going to consider you to be one of those people. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back and talk about the NFL. Actually, it was Major League Baseball that came up the other day. I don't follow the Philadelphia Phillies baseball, but apparently people are like bitching. Everybody's talking. There's a guy on the Philadelphia Phillies that apparently has a $300 million plus contract. He's like the shortstop or something. He can't hit and he can't field. He can't hit and he can't field. And the Phillies are like, well, we can't. It was like, of course, it's guaranteed for 6 years or something. You can't get rid of him. And like, oh, come on. There's themes just repeat over and over. It was the Philadelphia 76ers basketball 2 years ago. Ben Simmons, that big bum making $100 and some million who couldn't even hit a foul shot. I guess it happens in every big city. At least in Philadelphia, there's always, for one of the teams, there's always a bum making over $100 million that can't do anything. Before that, it was the Philadelphia 76ers, the first pick in the draft. The guy went something wrong with him or whatever. He couldn't. His name was like Foles or something, and not Nick Foles, the quarterback, but a guy for this Philadelphia 76ers, first pick in the draft. He couldn't even. They didn't even put him in the game. Like he had some emotional issue or something. There's always these themes, and I think it's just just trying to piss people off. You're out there working all day long to put food on the table for your kids, and there's some bum sitting on some sports team making over $100 million, and he doesn't even have to go in the game. It was a big news story this week in Philadelphia. I saw it come up a few times. I record the local news just for the weather, and I have to fast forward through usually the weather starts about 15 minutes in, and I see the news headlines flash up, and I pause and say, what does it cost to go to a Philadelphia Eagles NFL football game? And I think if they would have put the number at 666, they would have. It would have looked a little bit suspicious, even to the normal person. But it was like $647 or something like that. It was close to 666. $647, the way they calculated. If a husband, a wife, and I think one kid. I think it was like 3 people. Maybe it was a family of 4. But it was 3 people or 4, and it was, if you assume parking, the cost of the ticket. Each kid will get a hot dog. Daddy, I want a hot dog. You get a hot dog, you get a popcorn, and the dad gets a beer, or the kid gets a soda. It's pushing $1,000. It's pushing $1,000 to go to a damn NFL game. Of course, it's all they put their money into in Philadelphia. They're sold out. They live and die with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then the person rocking on their rocking chair on their stoop in South Philadelphia, and they're in their 80s, and it says, I based my entire existence and self-worth around a team. I based my entire self-worth as an individual around the success of the Philadelphia Eagles football team. And every time I spent my money, it went into this rich, horrible, wretched owner named Jeffrey Lurie. And he didn't even keep the money in Philadelphia. He took it back to where he lives in Los Angeles. And as I rock back and forth here in South Philly, I figured, what did I get by putting all my emotional energy and loosh and all my money into the Philadelphia Eagles? Oh, you know what you got, sir? Tell him what he's won, Johnny. Squat. You've won a wasted life. Squat. In the old days, before free agency, at least you'd have certain players on the team for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, like Bill Bergey or Frank Lemast or Jerry Robinson. You knew the players, and that's something. Now you're just, what's your allegiance going to? Just a color, colors, just a Eagles logo, a little eagle logo on a helmet. You don't even know who's in. Well, the diehard fans know the players, but the players come and go. Free agency. There's no loyalty. Some of them don't even end up moving into Philadelphia. Your allegiance is literally just to a logo and a color. Well, Matt, that sucks the most loose of all. You're right. Taking the personal element completely out of it. Okay, every team has its marquee player. What is it? They probably just signed the quarterback, Hurts or whatever, to like Mahomes. They get the long-term contract, so the fans are attached to some players, but the others just come and go, like literally just come and go. They're all over the place, though. Some Eagles teams look nothing like the last team. So what are you out there rooting for? You're rooting for a green and black jersey with a logo, and then all the money goes to that wretched, horrible owner, Jeffrey Lurie. So to wrap up the main topic, though, which started with Tuxie, and did she have 5 months of pure freedom? And I believe she did. I believe I helped give that to her. I don't believe that's a rationalization for what happened. I don't believe she had that before. Starving and barely surviving. That is not pure freedom. You have to at least be able to not be worrying where your next glass of water is going to come from or your next meal. That is not pure freedom, of course. All right. So I believe it was worth it. And what would we trade? Will we ever be able to put ourselves in a position where even if it's just 1 year of pure freedom, will we ever be able to taste that? Again, now, there was one time in my life when, I don't know, it was like a blissful feeling I'd never felt before, and I never realized why I felt this way, but I do now. As the human moves closer or closest to what would be considered, maybe it's an impossible standard, pure freedom, then it is an incredible experience. And I don't know and didn't know until now why it felt so amazing. I'll just be very brief, just a few minutes. It was, okay, I graduated Penn State. I think I've talked about this before. I'll be very brief, right? No classes. Got my degree in business administration. What a waste. But anyway, I thought it was something special at the time in the Schmiel College of Business Administration. So we were in an apartment off campus. The lease is through the end of August. I wasn't starting my new job at Silo Electronics. It's like Circuit City, an assistant manager at Silo Electronics. After summa cum laude, which is higher than magna cum laude, at Penn State, I was $20,000 a year to have people bitching at me about their broken camcorders. I'm not joking, but it was, I guess, luckily, the job didn't start until, I don't know, was it... maybe it was July 1st. I forget. So it was about 1 month at Penn State where I had a girlfriend at the time up there who was a junior. She had 1 more year. And Tony, the person, my best friend, he was up there. He said the same thing. He was just going to hang up there for a month because his lease continued. I'm not sure if he had a job or not, but 1 month, okay, bills are paid, no classes, had a little bit of pocket change. So some of the bars had $3 pitchers or $2. It was cheap. It was literally the closest thing to pure freedom. I didn't have to worry about paying an electric bill or whatever. My dad did pay the utilities on the apartment. There was no taxes or anything. I was in a work-study program working at the library. The federal government didn't have to file taxes. There was no property taxes. It was a state of pure freedom for 1 month, and it was bliss. It was. I don't know, and I didn't know until recently why it was such an amazing experience. Not just hanging with friends and drinking beer and being with a girlfriend and you would just grab. It was something that as well, but along the lines of what I'm talking about, being closer to a state of pure freedom that for the most part the human being is not allowed to experience, or if it is experienced as a younger person just graduating, the younger person doesn't realize what exactly is going down until the mortgage payment starts, and the car payments, and the liabilities, and the kid issues, or the child issues, and the expenses, and the property taxes, and and the worries at work, and all the stuff that the not milk will pour on you. And it is the way society's set up. How would you avoid that? Well, you can't unless you want to. Well, San Francisco will take you in and give you whatever they give the homeless there. They give you $1,000 a month, but living in a tent on the street in that environment, probably not really great. Not so great. I mean, so the not milk, says, well, these kids are going to graduate. Maybe they're going to spend a month or two at their university before they go off to work, and then they will make sure they chase the American dream with a big mortgage and a big car payment, and we'll get them right in the middle of the rat race, and they won't be able to get out. But the kids, when they have this a month or two, they won't know what they're experiencing, and let them have it. They'll be too dumb to understand, too drunk to understand it. But it was an incredible feeling. I mean, because my whole life I'd taken the grades too seriously, so that even some years in high school, they gave us books we had to read over the summer. And how terrible was that? The English teacher said, we have to read this, whatever, Macbeth or something before we come back. Are you kidding me? There's always some sort of burden. And it's not major, but there's a difference. But always took, getting good grades, again, like I said, too seriously, took too much effort into the book report, too much effort into studying for the test. Now I see, look, for what? I'm not any young person listening, get your B's, but do you need the A+ average? No, you don't. You should get the B's, and you should get, learn a little bit of something. And whenever the university has this tiny little opportunity once a year to teach you something, but you need to put in this straight A philosophy. But it doesn't get me anywhere. It was this mini recession when I graduated. You know how many job offers I had? Like none. There was literally one job offer was from a grass company. You solicit homes to get their grass cut. I'm not joking. It was summa cum laude. I went to, well, I might as well take this I like electronics. I guess I'll like this job. Well, it was horrible. People, my camcorder broke. What you going to do to fix it? Well, you're out of the 90-day warranty, sir. What? They yell. They always sent me up as the assistant manager to deal with all the belligerent people. So I was talking about even trying to study and getting good grades. But the point when this graduation happened, what I had known my whole life, even remember doing book reports and leaf projects back to first grade. There was no more studying. There was no burden. There was nothing even in the future. It was just gone, done, the diploma. But then the job hadn't started either. So there was no taxes. There was literally not a care in the world. And I mean literal definition of not a care in the world. And it was absolute. I didn't realize it at the time. I do now. It's not absolute bliss looking back at it. It was absolute bliss at the time. And now I understand why. And it's unlikely any adult will ever get to that level again. But we can work towards it. We can drop attachments. We can drop Jacob Marley chains. We can do what we need to do. We don't have to walk off into the forest as the kid into the wild. But remember, it's not just about doing it. The main point of me is, would it be worth it? Would you trade? You can't take 20 years off your life. If somebody said, Matt, you're in your early 50s, I have a crystal ball here, you're going to live to be whatever, 78 or 85, whatever it may be. But would you trade it? I'll give you 3 years, or with the equivalent of what Tuxie got, just over 2 years, or whatever it may be, of pure freedom and that sort of bliss that I'm talking about. Would you trade all the moments from this up until being old, like the Braveheart, old and decrepit in your bed, for that one chance? And I'll tell you what, it would be something to really think about. It depends on how free or how bound up the rest of the 25 or 30 years would be, of course. How much we could try to move ourselves into that position, not just have it given to us. One of the things that actually robs any potential possibility of pure freedom is not knowing your date of death, or not knowing how long you'll live. Well, I live into my mid-80s or even into my 90s or whatever. If you knew the exact day of your death, that sounds horrible, Matt. Oh, is it? It actually could bring incredible, you could have that 2-year period of incredible freedom. There's a Star Trek episode also with Picard where it was, Winchester, the doctor from MASH, makes an appearance. And he's developing a relationship with Diana Troy's mother. And per his the way his society operates on his planet, I think it's at age 60, they go off into the end of the Soylent Green, go into the euthanasia center right at their 60th birthday. And she doesn't want this to happen because now they've developed a relationship, and he's 59 and a half, and he doesn't have much time left. And he's like, you have to respect my culture. I guess he goes off, and it literally acts out the end of Soylent Green, which is, Soylent Green is a great movie in a lot of regards, and that euthanasia part at the end is really amazing for a lot of reasons. But see, let's just say that was our society at age, whatever the age may be. Then would you worry about a late water bill? If let's say you had 2 years before you had to go to that center, you were this character, you knew the time, or the asteroid was, take it like this, the asteroid is coming in, or Nibiru's coming around the corner when she comes, or whatever. You'll get 2 years until, would you worry about, let's just put it like that this way, the late water bill, or paying this, or worrying about this late notice, or they wouldn't be able to get anything from you because TikTok, you only have a certain amount of time left, and you knew whether the asteroid was going to hit, or you knew you just had almost like the movie, or In Time, I guess, with Justin Timberlake. He knew how much time he had left right from his arm, and it's not a good example because they could keep putting more time on and basically live immortally forever if they can keep earning more time to put in. But if it was completely finite and there was no way to add more time, That 2 year or even a 5 year period where you just stop worrying about commitments, stop worrying about late notices, that knowing the final day when the asteroid's going to hit or whatever, that can provide or could potentially provide that very limited state of bliss or no worries, no cares, Hakuna Matata, whatever. But the person does not get to experience that. My father doesn't know the day when he's going to die. He's just turned 80, and Fred, his friend, is a little bit older. They don't know. So they constantly plan. They worry about the bills coming in, and they're always planning, always stress, always. If you knew the day, you would have that period. It would almost be like the scene in Troy with Brad Pitt. I always go back to this, but an incredible truth drop scene. The gods envy us. And with Perseus, he's got her in the tent there. Because we are mortal, everything is more beautiful knowing it could be our last. The gods, while we're here in this experience, the gods envy us. But it's not beautiful if you are always thinking, I could live another 10 years, and every bill has to be paid up, and, we got to repaint the house, and we have to do all this stuff, and then one day something hits you on a Tuesday morning, and, why did I worry about it? If you knew that last day, the gods truly would envy. Because 2 years out, you'd be like, I ain't doing it. I ain't doing nothing. I'm just going to sit here in front of a flower all day long with a beer, or I'm just going to walk through the park. But then this might, again, assuming they're not going to turn the electricity off, or you know what I mean, but it's truly a situation where you just like me after I graduated, knowing your final day of the day of death is incredibly liberating. It's something. I'm not saying I want to be diagnosed. You saying you want to be diagnosed with 6 months? Something wrong with you, boy. That would be. I don't want that. But in a way, there is something incredibly special and beautiful about that. I don't know if it's coming out the right way, but it's hard. This is not the easiest thing to talk about. There was this movie. I don't know. It's called My Life Without Me, or something like that. I don't know anything about it. She's getting a disease. She's going to die. She knows she's going to die. Her whole perspective on life would change. See, we know we're going to die too, but we don't live our lives that way. Everybody here knows they're going to die, and it's just, just like Russ said, 5 minutes. But who lives their life that way? It's against the nature. But I don't know what this movie's about. I don't know if it's any good. Put in the comments, My Life Without Me. But somebody had said it to one of, that band Alpha, Somewhere Not Here, Alpha, one of the greatest songs of all time. Or what is it? There's two songs that are the same. Somewhere Not Here, I guess, is one of the two. And it was set to the movie scenes from My Life Without Me. And it was well done. I don't think it exists anymore on YouTube. But one of the things I start thinking about when I see that is, and I do this all the time when, so I hear somebody had died or Tuxie had died or the movie My Life Without Me, how, okay, there's a little ceremony for the person, or then the world just goes on like that person never existed. And it's fascinating to a degree, but it's sad to a degree, but it's just the way this world is. But I'm fascinated by it. I know I don't have many personal relationships, so I know it's stupid to keep relating it to a cat, but whether it be, okay, Tuxie died, the world just goes on like nothing happened, like it wasn't a real living entity. That won't be any different for me, or there's people, like I said, Nigel died, or people we know in our truth community, and it's just the way the world is. It just rolls on. The way James Earl Jones talked about America in that final scene, the world is just America has rolled on like a steamroller, and the one constant baseball, the one constant baseball. That the world, somebody will die, and even a president, and the whole world will be sad, and there'll be the train procession. Then the world just rolls on like it never even happened, like the world just doesn't care. And in a way that's weird, it's sad, it's sick. But that it further confirms that we're not here for the world's accolades and its applause or its sympathy. It's a worry about yourself experience. It's all about get what you need to get out of this life for you. It's not selfish. Take what you need to take with the three components working together: spiritual, soul side, body, and mind. They work against each other. The Not-Nilk has taught everybody to have, the Vitruvian Man, the arms that work against each other on different sides of the rope of the tug of war. Have everything work together, and then take what all aspects of you need from this world just for the length of the experience. But anyway, I don't know if that came out right. I'm not going to go listen to it or re-record it. And there's nothing wrong with it. This is the way the world is. But you'll hear, or a relative will die, or anybody. Tuxie, anybody. And it just fascinates me when this happens. I just look around at an intersection, and you're sitting there at the light, and the world just moves on, just rolls on. Like it's so callous as a collective. It doesn't care one bit that person existed or what that person did. It just, it'll give some token tears and they'll go to the funeral. And even the people that go to the funeral at families or whatever, 10 minutes, most family, 10 minutes after the funeral, they don't give a shit. Like a person they just move on with their lives. It's the nature of this place. It's part of the learning experience. It's okay. But it's so cold from a whole, from a collective. It's so cold the way it operates. And it's worth noticing, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of this experience. So to wrap it up, somebody had emailed me, and I saved it. I'm going to record the voice. Matt, this person must be related to you, or this little girl. But it was the original Worry About Yourself clip that I got. That's where the whole Worry About Yourself came from. I don't think she knew that. She sent me this little girl named Rose. It's a famous clip. I don't know if it's still on YouTube or whatever. She sent it to me via Instagram. And at the time, when I looked at it last, hundreds of thousands of views. And the father's like, "Can I help you with a seatbelt?" She's like, No, thank you. "Can I help you with that seatbelt, Rose?" No. And she's, Worry about, what do you want me to do, Rose? Worry about yourself. This little, she's like, I don't know, 2. "What do you want me to do, Rose?" To the father. "You worry about yourself." This is where I got it. She sent it to me. I don't think she realized that's where I got it originally. But I need to pull the voice because it's a child, and it can't be shown on the internet. That's get into the. It's ridiculous. So the way the pendulum always swings too far in the other direction. Someone was telling me a story that an announcer called one of there's a girl that was an announcer down on the field, said, "Oh, she's like Barbie," or said something, and then they lost their jobs, or the person lost their job because they called the girl on the field, that announcer at the baseball game, was like Barbie, and that's just derogatory, misogynistic. Everything's gone that way. So can you even show a little girl on the internet anymore? That's pedophilia. Come on. It's ridiculous. So anyway, I'm going to record the voice, and this is where it came from. This reality, and so many years back was like that little girl was a conduit of reality in itself. Her name itself is Rose. There's somebody convinced me there's like something to that even, or what I took from that. And this is a Worry About Yourself reality. It is not selfish at all. No way. We are not here to fix it. It's here to put the fix on you, but it is effed up by design. It is not meant to be. Don't we need to take the Hillary Clintons off to jail? No. These role players, this whole not nilk asshole segment is here for a reason. And ultimately, it's here for you. Take from the reality what you need to take, and then we'll get the heck out of here. Thanks for listening.